Hello again, everyone. It's December 17th, 2009. This is Day 9 Daily number 38. So hopefully everything's working properly. So here I am right now. I'm hoping that everything's functioning properly. I actually just started this, and it looks like there was some static going on, but some people are still seeing some. I would go ahead and refresh your player if you're seeing any static, but no big deal. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Because again, I've been awake for 30 hours straight. I have not slept at all since the last one. I had a bunch of work I needed to finish up, but I'm finally done for the semester. Finally finished for the semester. So I'm going to get some sleep. So we're going to zip right through this one. This was Flash vs. Hyun, one of the awesomest games I have seen ever. This is one of the coolest games. I mean, Flash is an absolute monster. Hyun also plays brilliantly as well. Going to have an awful lot to talk about this game. It's going to be really cool. So just want to dive right into it off the bat. So let's just go straight on over to the main screen. I'm periodically going to check and come back to make sure that there's no big static or any sort of crises going on in the stream. But this is Match Point. I love this map. This is such a cool new map. And people like to describe it as short rush distances because of this little thin ramp right here. You can rush your opponent at his natural very easily, but long push distances because you generally have to do this. But what we're going to see is that you can actually use this as easy reinforced distances as well, because you can get tanks on there, because you can move Medic, Marine, and Tank up to the center area very quickly. We're going to see Flash do an excellent job of taking advantage of this, and we're going to see some absolutely fantastic Mutalisk Micro by Hyun. Unbelievable Mutalisk Micro. Absolutely loved this Mutalisk Micro. And we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the game. Because it's pretty long, it's about 30 minutes long, so we've got to make sure we have enough time to talk about everything, and therefore I'll be able to finish a little bit earlier so I can get just a touch of rest before the OSL games tonight. Hooray! I highly doubt I'm going to be doing any casts for any live matches for quite some time because I just need to sleep. I've just been kind of overworked, so because, sadly, I am immortal, contrary to popular belief, I will in fact need to sleep and eat, and I've been good about bathing, but those first two have been a little bit not doing so much, the good old sleeping and eating, so I'm going to try to resort back to that in this coming Christmas weeks and plumping myself up quite a bit. Good Overlord scout patterns, a very usual sort of thing. Notice that if any sort of weird proxying is happening, if we send along this diagonal path, we get to see quite a lot of proxies along the middle. Second Overlord going straight down to scout any other alternative proxies. Notice only one drone going out. Really, you don't need to send the drone scout out if there's nothing that you're really going to be scouting for. Because really, most players are going to be early expanding, and even if they're not early expanding, look at all the information that this Overlord can get. This Overlord is going to be able to see exactly when you're expanding, if you're going to be moving out early with Vultures. It's going to get a whole bunch of information that's going to be very useful to you. Oh, and look, they have all these sorts of like giant cakes and water and stuff. And hopefully we'll end up getting back to the important part, which is the game instead of the fancy-dancy posters. This is wonderful photoshopping work. I could definitely spend 30 minutes talking about the photoshopping and how cool Flash looks, but I would ideally love to get back to the game. There we go. Fantastic. A+. And we have the SUV scouting. Everything's nice and normal. And now this is something that's interesting, is doing bunker rushes when really you don't have a huge bunker rush as part of your opening strategy. A lot of Terran players are of the opinion that if you can, start building a bunker and pull drones off these minerals here, you should always go for it. And there's nothing really too wrong with doing something like that. And we're going to see how easy it is just to pull right back at the last second. And I love how calmly Hyun deals with all this. Look at this. No drones moving anywhere there. Because that Overlord, see this Overlord? This Overlord is watching everything. And this Overlord is keeping an eye on things too. And sees that nothing's going on. Sees the command center's going down. That was just a complete and total fake with the bunker. Really, really nice by Hyun. Still making nothing but drones up to this point. Really love that timing. Now, what's become increasingly popular on this map is to go 2-hatch Mutalisk. We can do a little bit of Mutalisk harass along this ridge right back here, and we can poke back in there pretty well. And very importantly, there's this thin area between the expansion right here and between the main, so we can, punish with our Mutalisk a little bit there. We open up 2-hatch Mutalisk Zerg, and then we expand to this bottom right, a very normal sort of thing, but then we build a 4th hatch right here super early. We kind of shoot for this big-ass ground army with a bunch of Zerglings. Huge emphasis on Zerglings by getting that mineral natural up so early. Now, we're going to see how incredible Hyun is with his Mutila's Caress this game. Absolutely genius Mutila's Caress. If I was Q-Hatch Mutila's King for like a million years, I would have never, ever seen this. It was incredible, incredible subtlety we'll see abused in just a little bit. I just want to get everyone pumped up so that way everyone can freak out just as much as I'm going to, or as much as this girl already is. Usual sort of thing going down. Flash has recently been doing this relatively early second barracks, and that's the way that Flash manages to deal with any sort of two hatch opening. He gets these two barracks open are up very, very early, and as a result, whenever the two hatch Mutalisk comes out, rather than trying to use these barracks to battle against it, he uses the Medic Marine Army to just go straight towards the Zerg's base, and it peels the Mutalisks away from being aggressive and puts them in a more defensive mode. Everything's going as normal as can be by Hyun, but notice that he hasn't gotten a geyser down here at his expansion, which has allowed him to take this third extremely early. I mean, look at this. He's two-hatch Mutalisking, his Spire went down just, like 10 seconds ago, and he's already expanding to the bottom right. Very, 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 very early expansion. Yeah, look at that. At 200, he's getting ready to build that hatchery. Very nice timing. Look at all these overlords. Let's just think we have an overlord here, here, and here, if we look at match point. Map right now, we have an overlord over this area, so we can see any guys passing along here. We can see any guys passing along here. We have another overlord here. It's going to be able to hide behind this, so that way when we have troop movement along this way, we're able to spot it. We have an overlord back up there. Excellent placement. All abusing those little high ground edges. And look at that great bunker placement by Flash. Oh, he's so good, walling himself off properly there. And a lot of times you can leave that bunker at like 90% finished. Oops, dropping my pen again. You can leave that bunker at 90% finished, and there's no real need to finish it and shoot guys into it. A lot of times you can just sort of hold back at a position like this, and you're going to be in an adequate position to defend any number of Zerglings early on. Now the gas is going down. Pretty late gas by normal 2-hatch mutating standards, but look at this, only 4 Zerglings out there for Hyun. Maybe 6, I mean I might be miscounting via the mini-map, but since when have I ever miscounted or misspoken ever in a day 9 daily? I don't think that's ever happened before, ever. I'll just state that now for the record. And now we're seeing the usual sort of thing go down from Flash. It's very typical modern play that he's doing, where he's going to be getting a lot of Medic Marine and moving out super early. Note that even though we only have 4 Zerglings, we're still getting speed. We're still completing a bunch of tech, because it's important that our opponents see that he's that he has to build this bunker, because we've seen the early Zerglings coming out. Flash continuing to focus, biting his lower lip just a little bit, and these girls are here. Apparently, the cameraman's very intrigued by them. And now we already have everything being very, very typical. By Flash, he's adding on more turrets. Now, a potential concern is that if we do end up trying to be very aggressive with our 2 barracks, the Zerg can still punish quite a bit and get back in time. So Terran now has to be a little bit more careful when he wants to move out. And still, everything's going to be very well placed by Flash. He's playing extremely, extremely well. Both players are super duper good. I'm just going to keep saying that because, I just love this game so much. It's so great. And see this guy? Not the neck. There we go. Right there at the expansion. Already building up, or getting that drone ready to build that hatch. Look how many turrets this is. The Mutila's Caress from this angle is just very, very difficult to deal with. It's incredibly fierce when done properly. So Zerg's waiting till he gets a critical number of Mutila subs to where he can really put some serious pain on his opponent. You don't really necessarily need to get in there immediately with 6 Mutilas. What's most important is when you get about 8, where you can start really killing off those turrets a little bit more quickly, and definitely killing the SCVs off in one swipe. That's really the only time you need to really start moving in there. Continuing to abuse this side. And right now, Flash almost certainly doesn't have range for his Marine yet, so it's dangerous to run his Marines into there. So he kind of just has to take those hits and hope that his turrets can hold his opponent off effectively enough. Now, I'm going to pause right now and talk about the way that Zerg vs. Terran used to look. The Terran would build a bunch of turrets right here, obviously defending these minerals. And what used to happen is Terran would also build like 2 turrets above and below this command center, so that was defended. But of course, all the rest of the Terran's base was wide open. In particular, the area right by the barracks was an easy place to snipe guys coming out of the barracks right then. So now Terran players do build turrets right here, but then they also build turrets like here, and then 2 turrets here, and then bounce Medic Marine between these 2 locations. So there's not actually any turrets on the inside of the Terran's base. And Terrans have become very comfortable with this because they're extremely good at punishing with their Medic Marine. So anytime you run in, you run the risk of flying all your Mutalisks over a giant pack of Medic Marine and losing like 20 of them. And when you're like, 2-hatch Mutalisk gang, even if you lose like 4 Mutalisks, it's a pretty big deal. And can end up backfiring really severely. More excellent harass going on by Hyun. Can't wait till he starts doing this unbelievably beautiful abuse. And it's really when, your opponent starts getting in there and comfortably killing off turrets that you start to really freak out as Terran. Hyun looking calm, Flash looking calm, Flash looking kind of ready to murder somebody in real life, so, he's playing well. You always got to give him credit when he has that sort of look on. And everything's very normal, so notice at this point in time that the Zerg has these 4 bases with 4 hatcheries, and has done some stuff with his Mutalisks, but he hasn't gone like hog wild, right? He's poked in there, killed off a handful of SCVs, but really he's only done damage to this single point right here. And we're going to see him just explode in a minute here. So see, this is the abuse right here. Look at the position of these mineral patches. This is something I would never have thought about. So on a map like Fighting Spirit, for instance, these minerals are a little bit closer to that wall, right? They're just a little bit closer. And the Mutalisk harass ends up being completely ineffective. But when we're at this range, the Marines have to get pretty close up to these minerals to do any damage. The Mutalisk can effectively hide behind this mineral patch. And watch the way that all of Flash's Marines are going to get funneled into these little alleys here and here. And this is completely typical placement for these buildings. So look at this. Marines kind of filtering down. Look at these limbo lines of Marines. Anytime you get Marines positioned like that, it's just complete and total pain. This is unbelievable. Even if these supply depots weren't here, which 99% of the time they will be, you can still do a ton of damage. Whoops. By maneuvering around the fact that these minerals are just a little bit offset from the edge of the map. More offset than they typically are on other maps. Normally it's just 1 hex over, but the fact that this is just, an extra hex to the right means severe damage being done by these Mutalisks. Look at this. I see 4 SCVs mining. 3 right now. And still yet more damage being done by these Mutalisks. I was super impressed by this sort of exploit discovery by Zerg. Ooh, man. Very concerned. From the coaches. And then pulling right back out. A ton of drones, still replenishing Mutalisks. This I actually like quite a bit. This is very popular on Blue Storm, and we were seeing a little bit of it on Fighting Spirit, where you continue to do your normal play with Zerg, but you continuously replenish Mutalisks, and we already saw a +1 carapace upgrade there for Zerg. Almost certainly the time they allowed him to pop in there and hit the back. But you just do everything as normal as can be, and normally what happens is you end up doing something like 9 Mutalisks, then you go straight for Lurkers, and then when your upgrade for Lurkers finish, you get 6 or 7 Lurkers. But here, we just keep getting Mutalisks, and when our Lurker upgrade finishes, we might end up with, like 4 Lurkers, but we're going to be doing so much damage with these Mutalisks that it ends up being okay. We have a slightly later Hive, but, not the biggest deal in the world when we can do this much damage to our opponent. I mean, look at this. Not even microing, just having more guys. And this is what was really cool to watch at this point, is I was like, wow, Hyun is at an unbelievably large advantage because he found that exploit down there, and because all the rest of his play is so normal and so solid that even without doing that incredible abuse at the bottom left of Flash's base, Hyun would be in a really, really great spot. But now he's very clearly winning this game. And what blew my mind is how Flash is able to play when in this state. Because I'm just going to pause right now and just discuss this a little bit. One of the most frequent questions I'm asked by Terran players is how to deal with the mid and late game stages. And almost always they say something like, when I'm contained, or when I've taking a lot of damage from the Mutalisk Harass, or when I can't really get out into the middle, and he has Defilers, I end up losing. I can't get that middle control that, you seem to casually say Terran should be able to get all the time. And what I love about this game is it demonstrates that if you're playing Terran properly, you just get control of the center. And it's unbelievable the way that Flash just forces this to happen. So keep that in mind this whole time. That look at all this Zerg stuff in the map, and just think that this Terran player is eventually going to have complete control over the center, and Zerg's going to be kind of pushed up against his expansions pretty tightly. And a natural question is, holy crap, Zerg's expanding there. Why on earth would he do that? Because most players would think, well, yeah, I'm going to be expanding here or here. The reason we like expanding here is, first of all, it's at a corner with very small ramps, so that's pretty easy to defend, sort of in a naive thought process. But one might say, well, Terran can just waltz right up here and take this out. This is a really difficult expansion to defend, and if I took this one, that would be easier, given the fact that I'm already up against this side, and I'm going to be pushing up along this way, so that way I could easily take that expansion. Well, the answer is that, think of the way Defilers work. Let's say I just have these 4 bases, and I have some Defilers and Lurkers and Lings here. If I want to push, I have to do some swarms here, and I'm kind of trying to push forward, I'm trying to swarm up here. Maybe I want to take a shortcut over here, but then I have to swarm up a high ground, and then I have guys here and here. And at this point, Terran's already come around me and cut off reinforcements. But if I'm here, look at how short the distance is from this Expo to this Mineral Natural. In other words, it's a short push distance for the Defiler. It's much easier to be aggressive when we have a Nidus Canal up there than it would be if we had a Nidus Canal up here or at the bottom of the map. And look at Hyun, still coming into this exploit. Lost Mutalisks on the way in, but it's not a big deal because this is such an unbelievably strong position to be harassing. Twice now we've seen him kind of sacrifice a bit just to be able to move in there. And look, we have Marines and SCVs still falling, and at this point I was like, wow, Hyun's going to end Flash's Terran vs. Zerg streak with this incredible control. There's virtually no way that Terran could even dream of getting center control. But Flash, of course, is able to do it because he's an unbelievable baller. I truly think that Flash is the strongest player around right now, even stronger than Jaedong. Now, granted, I haven't got the chance to see a lot of Jaedong games as of late, but I'm still just so blown away at Flash's ability to just be in the game for as long as he is that I would give him the current title of best in the world. Now that expansion's coming up, we're almost certainly going to be getting a Nidus Canal immediately. It's a really difficult spot to be in for Terran. Because, even if you're Terran and you see that expansion at the top left and you decide to push right now, you're pushing away from the Zerg. If you kill this, the Zerg is more than comfortable with the remainder of everything he owns on the right side of the map. Sorry, I have the squeakiest chair in the world, and it's not going to improve anytime soon, so alas, you'll have to hear it crunch around. Now coming up here I think is a blunder by Zerg. I'll wait for the map to come up. Oh my god, he is blown away that Hyun is winning. He is just shocked. Good old NBC coach. Now when you're in this position where you have a good contain with lurkers, you have your opponent's high ground pod, you have a bunch of units, you don't need to attack. Your lurkers are en route, you're almost certainly going to be at an advantage. Your Terran opponent, is already screwed. There's no reason to try to win right now, and I dislike strongly that the Zerg ends up trying to flank Terran in this spot. A lot of sunken colonies are going to be made that top left expansion to just make absolute certain that our Terran opponent can't break it. Oh, also, obvious advantage. If we have the top left, that cuts out an expansion for our Terran player to get. Because that's very popular on Blue Storm. In Terran vs. Zerg, the Terran player simply takes his half of the map and then turtles, and it's very difficult for the Zerg to win if the Terran player gets enough siege tanks, medic marine, and science vessels patrolling all the key areas. Obviously, this is a good spot to be in because the Terran player has to push up a hill, but you need to be very careful there. Good Nidus Canal placement, way tucked up in the top left corner of the map. Here comes this big army by Flash, and then this is what weirded me out. I was kind of like, ooh, not so sure about this one. Especially how far forward these lurkers are coming. I wouldn't mind if the lurkers maybe a few burrowed here and then more burrowed right around here. Because if you think about it, this army is still designed to delay until we get our Defiler tech. And the way we delay it best is by burrowing, 2 lurkers out at this outside flank, but then most of our lurkers just in range of the tanks to kill off the tanks. And look at Flash, able to kill off all these units, and even though it looks like Flash lost quite a lot, it was a much bigger loss for the Zerg, who lost, 6 or 7 of those leftover Mutalisks, and then like 12 lurkers. That's always a big deal to lose 12 lurkers. So of course, if Flash had seen the bottom or the top left, he would have been able to hit it. But no, Hyun has really good defense. Probably would not have been able to take it back. And see, look at this. Short reinforced distance. Flash is now pushing across to this middle once he has control of this high ground pod. But now he's able to reinforce it and be super, 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 super aggressive. And every Terran's worst nightmare, the Defiler is now out, or the D-Lifer as we like to call it. And the tank's coming along. I enjoy this sort of little push action right up here. It's a good opportunity to be aggressive. You get to do damage without ever really killing your opponent, because a lot of times, if you're trying to push up to this high ground area, you're almost certainly going to encounter some troubles. But, if you know it swarms right around the corner, you can siege here, kill some drones, celebrate, you can be happy, and then you're just going to have to leave in a little bit. And Flash just has these barracks making 24/7. Target firing that back Defiler with the tanks, and obviously irradiating the other one, moving back very well, macroing, continuing to make guys, hotkeying everything perfectly. I love watching Flash play, he's so awesome. And I love the fact that Hyun's taking this. Look at how many drones were at that top left expansion. That really demonstrates incredible confidence anytime you see a player building that many drones. Then we have the Ultralisk Cavern going up, and at this point I was like, yeah, wow, Hyun's gonna win this in, like the next, 3-4 minutes. But of course the game is about halfway done right now. That is how good Flash ends up playing. And what I really love about watching Flash nowadays is that he splits his Medic Marine group from his vessels really often. He's just so aggressive with his ground army, he knows where his opponent's units can and can't be. And as a result, he's able to comfortably just sort of move the vessels around all the key areas and move his Medic Marine in opposite directions. Really good job of splitting these guys up. Hyun also doing the smart thing of burrowing lurkers, increasingly more to the left, trying to set up a good little short push here. Oh, and again, if any of you guys are developing questions, I unfortunately will not be taking questions after this one because I just literally need to sleep. I'm genuinely concerned about how little sleep I've been giving my body. And of course, it's punishing me severely by giving me this massive headache. But, no big deal. Just pop some Tylenol and continue to talk about StarCraft. A lot of things being built up here, a lot of defensive structures. I really would like to see a Spore Colony be built there. That's one incredibly underrated defensive structure in Terran vs. Zerg. It's so helpful to just have a Spore Colony shooting at any incoming science vessels. Because a lot of times you're going to have science vessels with 1 or 2 life wandering around thanks to Plague. And it's just so convenient to be able to have guys there. Right now, a really important question is, where are all of Zerg's gas units? He seems to be out of lurkers, and he seems to be relying just on Zerglings, Defilers, and Scourge. That's because the Zerg's saving up to do Defilers, saving up to do Ultralisk stuff, and he's using a lot of his gas on upgrades and that sort of thing and trying to keep his vessel count low. But more importantly, remember that, let's get this wrist out of the way. Alright, let's get this code out of the way. Remember that big attack that happened at this high ground pod where I was like, I don't know why Zerg's doing that. That's where all the gas units are. All those lurkers would have been incredibly useful at this stage of the game with all those Defilers, but unfortunately they are nowhere to be found. That's a really important reason not to do any of that mid-game attacking stuff, unless you pretty much need to kill it because your hive is nowhere near completion. Look at Flash, continuing to split guys up, move around the middle of the map, and look, he just has control over the middle of the map now. He just walked out there, and it's his. This is an excellent example for any Terran player who's struggling to maintain center control of the map. Look at this game and realize how Flash is able to just force it to happen. The instant his first push comes out, Flash just has the middle. That is how you play Terran vs. Zerg. Another great example of this is Zero vs. Flash on Ultimatum, a game that was actually played last night. A game that I watched during this waking period. Another great example of good control of the center. And watch how aggressively Flash is going to be moving forward with all these vessels. Look, he's getting them plagued, and he's just still comfortably walking them right out there. Yeah, he's going to lose some, but his macro is so good, and he never brings all his vessels. He doesn't have, 12 vessels clumped up together. He always has like 6 or so. And then there's 4 just hanging out here. And what happens is he brings his vessels back and repairs the ones that are plagued, and the other 4 that were hanging out there, he advances those forward again. So you notice there's 1 vessel there. The plagued ones are going back for repairs. Very good troop movement by Flash. Flash is now definitely aware of that top left. Very uncomfortable spot to be in as Terran. You're just kind of like, oh god, I don't get that expansion now. But Flash, he's so comfortable. Yeah, see, there's the vessels that are just hanging out, being left behind. Flash is just so comfortable with this. He's basically, 1.5 basing. His main's pretty much mined out, and he has his natural and his mineral natural. And he's able to just hang in there, no problem whatsoever. Macroing insanely well versus Zerg, who has 1, 2, 3, 4 gases and a mineral expansion, with basically 2 gases and 2 sets of minerals. Unbelievable game. Just continuing to upgrade. Kind of low on fire bats because it does end up costing gas to get those fire bats. We want to stay as gas free as possible so we can produce as many science vessels as possible. Running up there, even though we know we're not going to be able to bust up there, those are free lurkers right up top. So we want to be able to do stuff with them as much as possible. Look at that. Very good macro by Hyun, given the fact that he's this late in the game. I mean, he's getting close to 1k, and he could obviously spend that just by hitting the U button once or twice, so that's obviously not going to be a big issue. But a lot of Zerg players are going to let their money get up to like 3,000-4,000. Very, very common to see at this stage in the game. And that, is bad, so, don't do that. And here comes the best plague in the universe. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is how good Flash is. He does not bother him. He's fine with this. Look at him. He's not even breaking a sweat. He's just like, interesting. And he's going to stim and still get all these guys to back off. Look at him just eating through those ultras like butter. Assuming that Flash just comfortably picks up sticks of butter and puts them directly into his mouth. But if he did, that is the exact way that he would go through Ultralisks as well. Still leaving some science vessels behind next to that expansion. Just being so aggressive. Now this is, at this point I was like, okay, now Flash is going to lose in like 2 or 3 minutes. Because Zerg clearly has control over the Terran's high ground pod. Terran's even having trouble leaving his half of the map, so great. Game's almost over. But I was, of course, completely wrong again. And that's what really just blew my mind during this game, is just how many times I was thinking, yeah, okay, now easy win for Zerg. Zerg just kind of does cleanup. But Flash really pushed Hyun to the limit and like barely held on in a lot of circumstances. Look at this, a Medic Marine marching forward, and the vessels are not leading. It's just the Medic Marine going out there right now. Really important to note that Flash is now splitting these guys up. A lot of scans are going on here. If you watch really carefully on the map, you'll see Flash making excellent use of scans to investigate these areas. He's doing a lot of scans up here, seeing these Ultralisks, comfortably splitting up this Medic Marine army. It makes it very confusing to be a Scourge, because you never really know exactly where you need to be. Because even if you do end up catching the vessels off guard, Flash just has so many of them lying around. He's basically doing non-stop vessel production. Look, just repairing these guys. Having this Medic Marine advance forward. And Flash is focusing very hard on keeping control of that top and bottom expansion. At this point I was like, Jesus, does Flash actually think that he can starve the Zerg by just taking out the top and bottom and limiting Zerg to the top left? And he almost does. It's an unbelievable thing to watch. Oh man, this game is just so cool. And look at how the Medic Marine are split up. We have a lot moving here, but we still have some at the bottom here. Great rally points. Whoops, trying to move forward to take out that Defiler, but it doesn't go too well. That is so many vessels. That is outrageous. I mean, he could probably just go ahead and irradiate all the Zerglings if he felt like it. Just one at a time. And this Siege Tank being a little hero. Now, typically in Terran vs. Zerg, we want to be getting another gas expansion, such as this top left one, and then we want to be adding on a second factory, 2 more barracks, and just going like 9 barracks with 2 factory and 2 starport vessel. We want to back tech to those tanks, because those are the units that really end up doing tons of damage to these Ultralisks. If you watch Zero vs. Flash, you'll see that, or even Ruby vs. Jadong on Fighting Spirit that I watched earlier in my million-hour day. Ruby just had a few tanks and just ate through the Ultralisk. It was incredible to see how strong those tanks can be, especially if you can start getting armories in there and getting +1 attack upgrades. Look at Flash, still having control over the middle. Even though the Zerg has spotters all over the center, I mean, Zerg really cannot comfortably move units throughout that region. Still, almost all Zerglings, because all those Ultralisks that were there are pretty much, you know, irradiated. They're just hanging out, being all squishy somewhere. That's what I call an irradiated Ultralisk. I call it a very squishy Ultralisk because, you know, it takes only a few medic marine shots, you know, or like a tank shot or two to, you know, evaporate. At this point, I was kind of like, oh my god, Flash really does have this unbelievably huge army on regular walk, but he's moving forward aggressively with these vessels. Look, splitting his medic marine down this way and advancing with the vessels this way. Hopefully we'll get to see some nice scans in this first-person perspective. Yeah, see, look, scanning up here, and you'll note, you see, 4 vessels here. There's even more vessels down here with this medic marine group. But he wants to send these vessels up here just to check for if there's any, you know, defilers or any Ultralisks there. Oh, look at that. Incredible spamming there to get the repairs out. Uh-oh, here comes the Mutadiska. Arg. But, you know, no big deal when you have, like, a control group and a half of, you know, science vessels just hanging out back there at your natural expansion. Splitting up those Marines so well. And then we're going to see him just send a bunch of science vessels down that way. And because we have Medic Marine just sort of maneuvering around here, the science vessels can maneuver very freely throughout there. Which is not something that, you know, Terran's very used to. Normally you have to have your Medic Marine group protecting those vessels, but in a sense, the Medic Marine group is clearing out these Scourge paths and preventing any sort of that stuff from happening. See, that's why I love the Spore Colonies there. 2 free science vessels, because Terran wasn't unbelievably ultra mad crazy, super duper 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 careful. Usual sort of good stuff going on. This is what is nice when you have this many minerals. You can kind of just suicide like 24 Zerglings and just get a good plague or 2 off and some good swarms. You get some free units. A little overeager, a little bit overbold with those Marineries, but no big deal. If you're Flash and you can macro the way he does, you can do whatever you want and I will stand by it. Still good troop movement, moving so aggressively with those science vessels. Look, that's insane. I mean, it's so funny because Terran players, beforehand, when you'd say, well, why not just advance aggressively with your science vessels and irradiate all the important stuff? Terran players will say, oh, you could never do that because, you know, if they're plagued, they'll die, you know, and Scourge are just free targets. But this really demonstrates that, you know, if you're being aggressive enough, it's difficult to get, you know, a good foot established as the Terran, you know. As the Zerg. You know, Zerg wants to have his nice little pretty army of Ultros and Zerglings and all the Scourge there, but if the Terran is being aggressive enough with these Marines moving forward and just irradiating everything with the vessels, it's kind of hard to stop and say, man, I really do need to get some Scourge and calmly regroup myself because the Terran's being so up in your face the whole time. Look at that, 2 Spore Colonies. I definitely endorse that decision. I think it's a great thing to do, because if you can just get, you know, 2 Lurkers and throw down some Swarms, not only are you going to be in good shape for defense, but it's going to be very difficult for the science vessels to push in there too aggressively without losing them. Look at how hard it is for Hyun to advance. Even with this short push distance, that incredibly short push distance, he's still, you know, getting about halfway there. That really demonstrates why you need your defilers in good positions if you want to be able to do anything, I don't want to say do anything offensive with them, because, you know, it sounds like you're being an asshole with your defilers, but to do anything effectively, aggressively with your defilers, you need to be in a good position there. Yeah, look at this. Just, yeah, I'll happily sack 4 science vessels because I have 18 more, and I'll irradiate every single unit that requires gas. And at this point, I was like, oh my god, Flash has a window here. Flash can actually advance onto his opponent's half. And look at this. We're seeing that ramp, if you notice on the green right there, reinforcing very, very easily. Look at how dangerous this is for the Zerg right now. I mean, if Terran's able to waltz into your main, oh god. Fortunately, great Swarm and great Plague, and the rest of the Terran units are just a little bit too far behind, which is a little unfortunate. Really would have liked to see a bust in there, you know, to just be like, wow, Flash really is the best player in the world. Now, Hyun, I mean, I've been, you know, pretty much just talking about how Flash is just my favorite guy in the world, and I have a complete boy crush on him, but we also have to acknowledge how well Hyun is playing. Hyun is continuing to do the correct decisions from this expansion. He's pushing aggressively this way, and we've seen how many units have had to be pulled back up there. And also, Hyun is doing his best to expand to this top and bottom expansion. And even when they die, he's just continuing to re-expand right away. No big stress whatsoever. Hyun trying to keep these numbers low, trying to keep the vessel count down, because really if you can keep the vessel count down, you'll eventually win on gas. But Flash is just so good. Man, that's a lot of medics. Those guys are getting so healed. Hey, look at this. The science vessels are just, you know, rallied directly over this this high ground pod of Hyun's. It's so cool to see. Flash doing a good job of regrouping. God, I mean, just with 7 barracks, has like infinity medic marine. Love seeing that go down. And here, unfortunately, Flash really starts to slowly fall. But I mean, we still have 2 more minutes in the game. We still get to be blown away at how good Flash is for a little bit longer. And it's at this point that I was kind of like, oh man, that last push didn't work. Because really, you're about to run out of gas as Terran if you haven't already run out of it. So it's going to be incredibly difficult to continue to reinforce with 2 starports worth of vessels. But of course, bear in mind that you don't have to spend any more gas on upgrades. You don't have to spend any more gas on any tech structures. So you can still have quite a bit of science vessels into the late game period. And this is where I was kind of like, holy crap. This and this are the only mining expansions of Hyun. And imagine if Hyun didn't have that bottom expansion, he would have been mined out on his side of the map, and this would have been almost mined out. Isn't that incredible how Flash is able to just make that happen? Just continually waltzing around with these science vessels. Unbelievable awareness of what's going on the minimap. And see, I mean, the observers haven't even really gone anywhere, you know, to check out Hyun's play. They pretty much have just been checking out Flash and just been like, wow, man, that guy really is good. Let's just keep watching him. And I stand by that decision. Good choice, commentators. And see, just 2 science vessels, not quite enough to maintain that level of aggression that Flash likes to have. And alas, we're noticing on the minimap that Flash is finally starting to mine out on that left expansion. And you know what? This is the best example in the world of why it's important to have good macro. Flash just had all his money spent, and look, he gave like a zillion base Zerg a run for his money. A lot of times what happens is a Terran player will be mined out right now, but we'll have like 2k stored up, and we'll have a little bit of life left in him. And of course, this just extends the game by 2 more minutes before he loses. But of course, Flash, the moment he's mined out, that's when the good game happens. And notice how many opportunities Flash had to come back in and potentially win. Really impressive game. Even when Flash loses, I want to use his games as examples for people to learn from. And of course, naturally, we could have probably scanned that a little bit earlier, maybe even sent an SCV to the top left, you know, once we moved out with our push, just to double check. There's all sorts of stuff that we could have done, you know, to maybe increase our chance of winning by just a little bit more. But given everything that happened, if you just macro well and control your units the way Flash does, you're going to have this extraordinary advantage into the you know, mid and late game stages of the game. So it is. I am going to end it a little early. This has been about a 40-minute day 9 daily, but unfortunately, I am just so exhausted. I'm going to go to bed right now because my head feels like it's going to explode. So another thing I just do want to mention is the fact that I will be taking Day 9 Daily replay submissions in about 3 weeks. Don't send them to me now, though, because if you do, it'll get lost, and I guarantee I won't be able to put it in the sort of random draw for you know, the replay submissions. So definitely just hold on to them. Start accumulating your replays and have good reasons for why we want them reviewed. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Hopefully we'll have a wonderful little session of Day 9 Dailies coming up for next week, and maybe even an OSL cast or 2 if I'm up for it. But remember, nothing is set in stone until it is scheduled on that calendar. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Cheers!